If you want to pump your body and expand your mind, there's only one place to go. Mind Pump. Mind Pump with your hosts, Sal DiStefano, Adam Schaefer, and Justin Andrews.
In this awesome episode of Mind Pump.
Here we are, everybody.
Look, for the first 45 minutes, we don't talk a whole lot about fitness, but we do have a lot of fun in the introductory portion of this episode.
As we always do. So.
Now, we open this up with some real light talk. We talk about politics, boom. Some third rail talk, good times.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Then we talked about the Girl Scouts versus the Boy Scouts. What the hell's going on over there?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm confused.
They're not the Boy Scouts anymore. They're just the Scouts.
Yeah.
That's it.
Let's get it right.
Then we talked about Adam because, he's going to be a dad now. I think he's finally going to get life insurance. It's about time. And so we talked all about Health IQ. They do offer life insurance to fit and healthy people. That's what they specialize in. If you go to Health IQ, HealthiQ.com/Mind Pump, you can take a health quiz, see if you score better than we did, and get a free quote.
Keep listening to Mind Pump. You'll score well.
Then we talked about the brand new red light therapy, Juve Go. It's rechargeable. It fits in your hand. You can get either the one that does the far infrared or the near infrared. One's better for the skin, one better for the muscles. Look, we talk all about it in that part of the episode. They are also one of our sponsors. If you go to Juve.com, JOOVV.com/Mind Pump, you will get a free MAPS Prime program with the purchase of $500 or more, and you're going to get free shipping. Then we talked about motivating kids to do well in school. We talked about the processed foods study, and we talked about the show on Netflix called Strongland. And then we get into the fitness portion of this episode. The first question was, this person wants to know the pros and cons of full body workouts versus body part splits. Which ones are better for what, and which ones are better for you? The next question, what are some good tips we can give on helping people develop a mind-body-muscle connection? That sounds all
woo-woo.
Weird, right?
Yeah.
The third question, we give our thoughts on lifting weights while pregnant. Of course, Adam's girl is pregnant right now.
Yeah.
And Justin looks like he's pregnant. So we talk all about
every day after a burrito.
the exercises that you should do.
Screw you, Sal. I'm getting you.
The last question, we give our input on all that drama that's going on with the Instagram star.
Oh, snap.
Brittany Dawn. Did she rip people off? We do our speculation. Good times. Also, this month, MAPS Performance is half off. Someone told me if I whisper, people listen in. So it's 50% off. Look, MAPS Performance is a program designed for functional athletic performance. It's designed for people who want to develop an athletic-looking body. So think about what that looks like. An athletic-looking body. Nice core, nice legs and hips, strong glutes, good back.
Butt.
Nothing is overpowering anything else. It's good mobility. The workouts are also very different. It isn't a traditional workout. You'll be doing a lot of cool, fun stuff. If you go to mapsfitnessproducts.com, use the code GREEN50, GREEN50, to get 50% off. You can also check out our other MAPS programs on that site. Make sure you go look at them. We're so, what's the word?
Establishment.
Everything.
Yeah.
Anything.
Yeah.
Convention.
Yeah,
I'm
don't
an
tell me what to do.
unconventional guy.
Someone's like, hey, don't step there because it's a hole in the ground and you're going to fall and kill yourself. And I'll be like, fuck you.
Oh, yeah?
I'll do exactly
Watch this.
what I want. You know what I'm saying? And then as I'm falling, you'll be like,
I do what I want.
you didn't tell me what to do.
I broke my ankle.
Yeah, were you guys like that?
Worth it.
Were you guys like that as kids? Like where you just didn't like people telling you?
I wish I wasn't 100%. I was like that.
That's so funny.
I mentioned it on the podcast the other day, and actually Katrina brought it up, wanting to know where I thought it stemmed from, and I'm like, I don't know where that came from. Because it's probably something that you had as a child, or that it started then. Like, were you I was never somebody to go do what everybody else was doing. That just, I didn't like to do that. Like I always wanted to do my own thing or have my own thing or create or be the first to do or.
See, this was what was interesting was because like I had a group of friends that would party and would do things, and like with sports and we'd hang out, and then I'd also have like my church kind of friends that would like have you over, and like you'd have like Bible study, you'd have all these things. Like I couldn't get fully vested in either or, ever. It was always like, well, I don't want to do that, and then like nobody would have my back, and I'd be like, okay, I'm out of here.
Yeah, I've always been skeptical of the mob. You know what I mean? Of the crowd. I've always been like, I've always stood back and looked at it and been like, dude, what's going on there?
Bill Burr, the most amazing bit on this about fuck groups. I completely fully agree.
As in like screw groups, or like these are groups that like fuck groups?
Yeah, no. Yeah, not fuck groups.
I love Bill Burr.
Bill Burr's the best.
He's just got such a great perspective on it. He's just like, everybody needs to think individually.
Dude,
which is the opposite of what we do.
Yeah, and I would be a terrible, like I wouldn't do well in prison for this one reason right here. I would get murdered in there because even as a kid, if there was a big kid or a group of kids, or when I was in junior high there were gangs, and if I felt like any of them tried to like punk me or tell me what to do, I couldn't live with it. Like I would last approximately a day. Like if something happened, I'd go home that day. Several times this happened where one of them would bump me and there'd be like 15 around me or whatever. I'd go home and I just all night I'd be thinking about like I have to stand up to them. I have to say something. And I'd devise a plan, fully prepared to receive an ass whooping and be happier with that than having had to back down.
Right.
And just a terrible anyway.
Right.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
Hey, you haven't brought up, and Doug hates when we do this, but so I'm going to do it anyways. But you have to talk about it. I mean, our boy Trump yesterday or the day before, he's in the clear, right?
Well, the Senate committee said that they found no evidence that there was anything
colluding
going on
with Russia.
Yeah, dude.
My boy was convinced he was going to get impeaced.
Of course.
Like that was going to be the death sentence, right?
Yeah,
of course. Everything's so politicized, it's insane. It's funny too because I posted a picture of an article that said that. And the article said, Senate committee, says that they found no evidence or whatever. And I posted like a picture, like a little GIF or whatever of a woman eating popcorn because I'm like, this is going to be very interesting.
Right.
Like I can't wait to see from a distance, watch what happens with this next election.
Right.
And this irritates me. Here's the thing that irritates me. And now I'm very clear on the podcast. I didn't vote for Trump. I'm not. There's things he does I like. There's things he does I don't like. I'm not necessarily a huge fan, but some of the stuff he does, I'm a fan of. Again, some of the stuff he does,
you're taking the emotion out of it.
I'm very critical of. Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm not like a huge fan. I posted it and I'm like with the popcorn gif, like, oh, let's see what happens. And immediately I get people who are like, oh, you can't trust that website or that newspaper. I had this lady who's like, oh, that website or that news organization, they're a right leaning whatever. So I'm like, okay, how about NBC? How about Politico? How about CBS? Because everybody's reporting
CNN,
it.
yeah.
And I understand where she's coming from, but what gets on my nerves is not all information is going to be fake. Some of it will be. Do your own research before you jump to defend your own political bias.
Right.
Like if we had more objective people, here's the thing: a lot of people the people who are afraid of Trump are afraid of the power that he has and the things he could potentially do. But he wouldn't have that power if those same people didn't sit by idly while Obama gained all that power. And all the people who were afraid of Obama wouldn't have had all that power if they didn't sit by idly when Bush right. expanded his power. Like we wouldn't be in this situation if the president had the amount of power he's supposed to have, right. which is not that much. He really is not supposed to have tons of power. He's not supposed to be able to invade other countries. He's not supposed to be able to do executive orders all the time. And because they do now, people are so afraid. It's like, look, we should be in a position where we laugh at the president. Like, whatever, do what you can't do shit. You have
right.
no power. But instead, we're in this situation, But I'll tell you what, right now, from a outsider standpoint, from somebody who tends to not like aspects of either side, although right now the left is frightening me a little bit with how they want to censor speech and stuff, which is kind of frightening considering they're the ones that always
irony of it, right?
Well, they used to advocate for free speech, so it's really weird.
They're the biggest proponent of it.
It's really scary because they're the ones pushing for banning speech, fining people for what they consider hate speech. Which here's the thing with hate speech: who determines that?
Yeah.
That's always the fear. Jordan Peterson did a bit on this. He talked about how in the UK there was that one comedian that taught his girlfriend's pug to do the Hitler salute.
Oh yeah,
remember that guy?
Yeah. That was in the UK, right?
Which it was in the UK.
I mean, it was Canada.
No, it was in the UK. It's he thought it was funny. Some people thought it funny. Some people thought it was offensive. Whatever. It's just a fucking pug. And Peterson made a great example of it. He says, look, it's funny because it's a pug. Like if he's teaching children or if it's like a German Shepherd, and they're trying to, then maybe, but he's like, and not only that, he says, we have to, back in the medieval times, the jester was the one that was able to tell the truth to the king and get away with it. And everybody knew that when the king executed the jester, they were dealing with an evil person. Mm-hmm. And so comedy needs to be able. Speech always
is that the role of the role of the jester was actually to make fun of things that were like be ironic.
He was the only one that could get. He or she was the only one that could get away with.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so they'd get up there and poke fun at the king.
Parody
and parody.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I thought it was I always thought it was an entertainment for the king, but it was more for the people and like the voice of the kind of like what comedians do today. When you think about
it,
that's the history of like what comedians do, because comedians do political commentary and say things that
you taught me something today.
Most people can't. A lot of people can't say, but you can say when it's a joke. And comedians have forever gotten away with shit, and so it's kind of scary because the left is like they're the ones that are pushing for speech censorship, which is kind of frightening. But anyway, I disagree with things on either sides oftentimes, and I'm looking at this from the outside, and the economy's crushing. I don't like the debt, but I don't think the debt is going to crash on us anytime soon. Trump's going to be. I don't think anybody. How are they going to beat him? It's going to be hard to beat.
The thing that I'm most worried about with all this stuff is I've always been Mr. I don't give a fuck about politics. I joke about it all the time, saying it's sports for nerds, and I've talked about it more. In the
sports ball,
I've talked about it more in the last 8 years than I have in my entire life, and I don't think that has anything to do with my age getting older. I just think it's the climate right now.
Yeah.
I've never felt such a division because I see it within my own circle of friends of mine that we didn't really care or talk about that stuff anymore. There's definitely this clear division of ones that kind of work for the government and work on that side of the house, and then those of us that have built our own
that's
business.
Really where I see it too, and it's people that are employed, and have and that's the thing, you have a perspective because who's cutting you checks and what initiatives do you want to pass because it's going to affect your environment right in front of you.
There's clear things I don't like that Trump does, and so when people criticize and say I hate him, I like to ask them okay, what is it that you don't like? Let's have a great conversation. And I fucking hate it when people do this. This happened with previous presidents too. It's not unique to Trump. But they'll be like, oh, well, I just don't like him. He's a bad person. It's like, you don't know what to criticize because you don't know.
Yeah.
There's plenty of things to criticize. Yeah. Talk about the tariffs. Talk about debt. The debt that he's doing, talk about some of his, kind of strange relationships with, certain figures in the Middle East or whatever. Talk about, foreign affairs. Right. But no, he's an evil person. I just don't like him. You, my friend, are a blind individual who's just got a strong political bias. Doesn't fucking matter who the person is. Just because they're on the opposite side, you don't like them.
Right.
And that's the game that politicians play. And that's why there's only ever going to ever be two parties. That's why it's funny when a third party tries to come in, the only time the left and the right work together.
Right, they crush them together.
Well, you saw that with that Roger Stone documentary on Netflix is he instrumentally was behind trying to make sure that the Ross Perot factor did not happen.
Oh yeah.
It just doesn't matter. It fucks, one side or the other completely, and so nobody wants that third party.
No, they work together and they do it in a very sneaky way to get nobody else in the conversation, and then they force you to think those are your only two options. And the way they do it is, if you ask people who vote for one side or the other, oftentimes what you'll hear is, they're the lesser of two evils. You know what I'm saying? You ever hear that? Where people are like, oh no, yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Hillary, but I hate Trump. Or I'm not a fan of Trump, but I hated Hillary.
You voted Libertarian, or you're just wasting a vote.
Yeah, or you voted Green Party. Waste.
Thanks.
Yeah, my vote.
Oh, so I can't have my own thoughts.
Yeah, fuck.
Oh yeah.
Well,
whoops, silly me.
Well, while we're touching third rails,
yeah. Yeah.
What's going on with the Boy Scouts thing right now, man? I know that's ruffling feathers right now, and there's a bunch of shit getting stirred up with them.
So they made it. Now they're just the Scouts. By the way, do you guys know that the Girl Scouts are suing them?
Yeah, well, they're going. Aren't they bankrupt, or they're going at it's hurting them substantially?
The Girl Scouts are
Girl Scouts, yes.
suing the Boy Scouts.
So I did some research.
Taking a lot of business.
I did some research. Again, this is an issue that's become politicized. So I'm like, okay, I want to get through the politics. Let's look and see what's going on.
Right.
The Boy Scouts have been losing money for a long time. They were embroiled in lots of controversies, sex abuse and mishandling of money and all that stuff. The Girl Scouts and the Boy Scouts are separate entities. Okay, they're not like one organization doing.
One sells cookies, one makes.
They're
fires.
separate entities. Yeah. Okay, so the Girl Scouts are going after the Boy Scouts because they're both called Scouts, and now that they changed it from Boy Scouts to Scouts, the Girl Scouts are saying, people are going to get confused and think they could just go there. Basically saying, hey, we're not the same, and the fact that now you're just Scouts and allowing women or girls to come in. Isn't cool. So I found that fascinating.
You know what? And this is a really touchy subject. I'm just in this mood, I guess, today. But I heard something that Bishop Barron talked about, and you just said something with the Boy Scouts, and because they've had the child stuff go on too, right? With the Boy Scouts,
just like sexual abuse.
Have you ever heard Bishop Barron talk about that with the Catholic Church?
No.
So it's kind of interesting. I was listening to it. I don't remember what interview he was doing, and it was Ben Shapiro. Great interview. So they get in this, and Ben Shapiro asked him some really challenging questions, and that was one of them. He went into that, and he explained, and he did it way better than I ever could. So, those that are going to get offended right away by this topic, like, go listen to the way he articulates his points. But the way he kind of talks about it is, it's one of those things that because where it came from, like the Boy Scouts or like the Catholic Church, we fucking make it crazy. But when you look at statistically, like, how many thousands of Boy Scout leaders are there and what percentage of that actually did this, and then you compare it to the rest of the world in all professions, it matches up, or it's the same, or it's less.
That's actually an interesting point.
Yeah, like, so he goes, if there's, I don't remember this number, so don't quote me on these numbers, but he said something like there's 4% of child abuse that happens in the world. Mm-hmm. And so when you look at the church, or you look at you look at these things, there's 7,000 leaders within that,
and 4%
have done that.
Yeah, or have been accused.
But what we do is we isolate that and like, there's this huge problem there's a huge problem in humanity,
in general,
humanity that's fucked up, and you're not just because
you could probably have that same stat like going through like daycare, centers.
That's my problem. I thought
that was fascinating.
It is my problem with, and I want to go back to the Boy Scouts because there's something else interesting about it. But my problem with the Catholic Church isn't that; it's that the cover up. Right. That happens as a result
of course, and by no means did he was he trying. That's why I want to trigger everybody that I triggered by talking about this. He did a really good way of talking about it. It wasn't like he was justifying it, but he was explaining
he's actually a huge proponent of fucking opening it all up,
right,
and letting everybody know what they know and what's going on.
Punish people who need to be punished.
Yeah,
right. But that was just something that I had never even thought about that, because I remember when that all happened and came out. I was like, holy fuck. But if someone imagine if you just presented that information different to me, that, hey, it looks like even the church is tainted with this as the rest of the country is.
Yeah, so back to the Boy Scout thing. So I had seen that now there's more girls like coming into the Scouts, and they've actually created their own all-girl scout tribe.
In the Boy Scouts.
Like Girl Scouts within the Boy Scouts, but not Boy Scouts. It's the Scouts.
It's
what the fuck is going on?
Again, it's
poor kid. How confused you are as a kid. Like, where do I sign up, Dad?
Yeah, well, it's so it is politicized to make it look like, oh, boys are they're going against boys, but girls get to do this, that, and the other. So we got to look at it this way: the boys, consider them both separate entities, right? And yes, one was all girls and one was all boys, but forget that for a second. The Girl Scouts did very different things than the Boy Scouts. So the Boy Scouts did a lot of camping and survival stuff, and the Girl Scouts didn't do that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of girls that want to do that stuff.
They want to do that stuff.
Now,
that makes sense.
Yes. And so here's what I think is going to happen. I think the Girl Scouts, if this ends up being a big deal, the Girl Scouts are going to have to change and start adding those types of things in. You see what I'm saying? Uh-huh. That's what I think, to compete.
Yeah.
But although the Girl Scouts have done pretty well, it's the Boy Scouts that they're they've lost money or whatever.
Right. So
that
is really interesting.
Talking about not doing what people tell you to do. Are you finally going to get life insurance?
You've been called out.
Especially
with that new news you dropped on.
You got a baby coming,
all of
man.
us.
Little Maximus is coming.
I am finally going to take advantage of our health IQ. I mean, this is, and I've been pro it all along, but honestly, at this point in my life, there was not a heavy reason for me to do that. I do have a heavy reason.
Some urgency now, huh?
Yeah, so there is a little bit of urgency to make sure my ass is
Do you
covered.
remember what your health IQ test score was? It was high.
It was the same as yours.
It was like 97 or something like that?
No, it was higher than that. We were 1 something, weren't we?
I think out of 100. I think it's out of...
I think it was out of 200.
Yeah, it was like you had a 200. You and I,
okay.
we scored the exact same. I remember. You sent it over.
It was like 187.
You pretty much copied me.
Yeah, exactly. I copied your homework. Yeah. You know what trips me out about that when I was on the phone with them is that they use that score. It's not just a bullshit way to get people to get leads or whatever.
I thought it was that.
So did I.
Yeah.
No. You take their health IQ test, which the questions they ask in there are good. They're not stupid questions. They're not like, is it good for you to work out? No,
they're really filtering people out with it.
They like you need to know fitness, and you need to know fitness somewhat.
Right.
And when you take the test, they actually use that score, and that score helps bring down your price because they've identified that people who score well on that test, which I think is fascinating, people who score well on that test are a good investment on their part. They know they could charge them less because the fact that you have a higher...
makes very logical sense. Like you're going to care about your health, and so therefore you're going to educate yourself.
How cool is that? Like the fact that you know more about health and fitness, they've now been able to connect to the fact that you're probably going to live longer. Mm-hmm. Therefore, we're going to give you a cheaper rate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The other thing that was cool, Adam, that's going to work in your favor is they don't look at cannabis use like other life insurance companies.
Yes. No, this is a big deal.
Yeah, because most life insurance companies, if you smoke weed, they count it like tobacco. And if you smoke tobacco, life insurance, you're fucked. I think your price will double
And I'm sure like our fan base, there's
I'm actually going to stop anyway.
Cannabis
completely. Or just reduce a lot.
Yeah, I don't like saying that because I know that I'm going to get a bunch of DMs, people asking, are you done? Are you this and that? Or good? I'm not going to like, this isn't something that I'm like, I can never have it again. I'm going, but I don't want my son to be born in a house where that aroma is. For now, I don't give a fuck. It's my house.
Sure.
I smoke in it. I do whatever the fuck I want. But even if my family comes over and they smell it, I don't give a shit. They know. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't care. But I will care when it's my son. When I think when he's in the house, and I don't want him to even get used to that aroma. So for sure, it'll be out of my house.
Maybe do it like when you guys have a date night.
Or us,
you
know what I'm saying? Like,
else,
I could imagine we're traveling somewhere where, I mean, for sure, I'm going to light one up with you guys. In fact, I'll probably enjoy it even more than because I rarely.
Hey, that's what I've noticed.
Me, man. Yeah,
that's what I've noticed. I've reduced my usage considerably, and I noticed that I enjoy it more now when I do it.
Yeah. So, and really for me, it's like I don't want my son to see or ever even misinterpret my use as anything. Like I don't want it to be a part of his life. Now, when that time comes and I have to have that conversation and he asks about it and wants to try it or this and that, fine.
Try it with him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll educate him and talk to him about it, but I don't want to make that decision that much easier.
You don't want to make it a normal part of his life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, I hear exactly what you're saying.
Absolutely. And I've never cared enough to even potentially just completely. But again, this is why I've always been pro cannabis. Is I don't have a problem just stopping. Like I don't.
It was 100% harder to get off caffeine than it was to go fast off of Canada.
I've done a really good job, in my opinion, of keeping a nice balance. Now on the show we talk openly about it, and I'm known as like the marijuana guy because I did the 2 cannabis clubs and I'm pro it, but it's not like I'm stoned.
No,
that's
Doug. Doug is stoned. Just kidding.
He's got push buttons.
Not true.
So
wrong.
But I absolutely. One of my favorite things in the world to do is when the Warriors come on at 7:30 at night before I go to bed, is I sit down and have a little bit and watch the show or whatever.
Well, here's the other thing too about life insurance. I was talking to Doug, and Doug says that obviously when you get it, if a health issue comes up after you've got it, they can't cancel it. It's yours.
Right.
If a health issue comes up now, you may not only will your rate go up, but they'll deny you many times. So oftentimes people will go in to try and get life insurance, they just had a health issue thing. So now they're like, oh, I should get life insurance. Sometimes at that point it's too late. You know what I mean? So getting it when you're fit and healthy is the way to do it.
I have to do a physical, Doug?
Yeah, you have to do an exam, probably blood, urine,
prostate.
Probably no EKG. Depends on how much you get as far
They're gonna
as
milk
life
you.
insurance.
They're gonna put all kinds of
Oh,
fingers
so
in
like
your butt.
if I do like a really high level.
Yeah, the more insurance you get, the more comprehensive the
Well, I'm going to need some help with
colonoscopy.
you to probably sit down and talk because I want to make sure Katrina and my son don't ever have to worry, but I don't want them to be fucking make out big time. You know what I'm saying? Like, you won't worry. Yeah, I don't want any motivation for my death. So I want to find that sweet spot, but what to figure out inflation over the next 15, 20 years. We have to figure out like what.
I think you're overthinking it.
Well, if something happened to you.
No, the truth is you really want your family to be well taken care
Of course.
And I don't think anybody has a real motivation.
Nobody gets my
at this
jokes
point
around here.
anyway to knock
all
you
right.
off.
Is that on right now? Do you
Yeah.
have the Juve on right now?
Yeah.
Dude, how do you like the little carry?
Well, you see me using it right now. I mean, I'm digging it because it's even smaller than I thought it was.
fits in your hand.
Yeah, no,
it's like the size of a really big
like a brick.
iPhone, but it's thicker, obviously. But it's got the same.
Yeah, it's almost
Like
the
a Samsung
maybe
Note.
a tiny bit bigger than the big iPhone, right? And like you said, thicker, obviously. But you charge it, so this thing you just plug it in. Doesn't take long to charge it up. Then it's pretty much charged up. I don't know how many hours it lasts for, but it has these 3 little dots that show me where the battery life is.
So this one's a little more dim, though. I saw the other one that was like super bright.
Okay, so they sent us a bunch of them, right? And I tried 2 of them, and one of them was fucking crazy bright red. I mean, it looks like you're entering into a new dimension. Then the other one that Adam has, you can barely see the lights, and if you turn the lights off, you can see them a little more, but it's barely. So at first I'm like, is there something wrong with this?
Yeah.
But then I remembered
Do I need to hit it?
But then I remembered the big panels have a combination of those 2 lights.
near and far.
Yes, so that's what it is. So the red one, which is called I think it's just called red, is a different wavelength of this of red light, and that's the one that's absorbed by the superficial layers of the skin. So that one's good for skin. So collagen production, skin clarity, improvement in skin's tone and texture. It's good for the eyes, the thyroid. That's the one that's probably
All the surface stuff.
yeah, anti-inflammatory support, hair restoration. So you want to make your hair grow. You want that one. The near infrared one, which is NIR. That's the one you have. That's a deeper penetration.
That's
So
like muscle soreness and stuff.
muscle and joint health. And they also say, on their site that it helps with gut health and organ function because a greater percentage of the energy is absorbed into the deeper tissues. Now, ideally, if you want to go balls out, you use both of them. But if you get that little mini one and you know exactly what you want to work on, like
I go balls out with it right on top.
Right, exactly. No, like if you want to help with wrinkles or you want to, help with just your skin tone and that kind of stuff, go with red. If you're more like I want muscle recovery, go with the NIR.
No, and I'm glad you actually did that because I actually thought it was the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, I thought the brighter one would be the deeper penetrating one, and then the lighter one would be the other one. So I have that lighter one right now. But that's not what I wanted right now because I'm more about the skin and the hair. For me I notice when I use it on my head, my hair's fuller. And by no means does it fucking fix me being thin, but it makes it's definitely thicker and fuller, which is nice, right?
It's FDA, that red light therapy is FDA approved
It's
for
legit.
hair regrowth. Yeah.
Well,
so it's not like a bullshit. It sounds like it's bullshit, but it's not.
No, even every doctor we talk. We just had a great conversation with Dr.
Gabrielle Lyon.
Yeah, Gabrielle Lyon, and she was just a huge advocate of it also. I mean, everybody I've talked to is pro it. And I remember I told you guys way back when we first got sponsored by them. And when I was sitting in front of it, the 2 things that I noticed the biggest difference, like I had a hard time noticing recovery stuff. That was a really tough one. It wasn't something so dramatic. I was like, holy shit, like Ben said, because Ben made it sound like it was a big deal, and I couldn't see that. What I did notice was my psoriasis was 10 times better, and then my hair was thicker and fuller. Mm-hmm. That's it, like that. But I also noticed, too, I neglect it. I don't do it, and then it's back to kind of how it is. Like my psoriasis right now is because I haven't been consistent with this. I can see it.
Well, I was just worried initially when we were partnering with them because it was like such a barrier to get these panels and these units because it's so expensive. And like, I know people were looking for alternatives, online, and they could find them, but didn't have the quality that was like tested like Juve has.
Yeah.
And now they have like this smaller one that's actually affordable and like it's more reasonable.
And
It's like, oh wow, finally.
It's still not cheap because it's the high.
Well, it's like $300 versus like thousands of dollars.
It's $200 something bucks for it. It's not that, but it's
fucking quality.
no,
dude,
it's dope.
Because
I mean, even the box and shit you get it in. It's like.
Well, I remember when we were first talking with them,
sick.
I talked to Greenfield about it, and he's like, "Oh yeah," he goes, "There's a lot of red lights on the market that are bunk.
Yeah.
Like you're just getting red light, but you're not getting the kind of red light that all the studies support and all that shit." So
Yeah.
Anyway, so you know what I love more than anything? Being right. Doesn't that feel?
I fully believe this.
It's
By
such
the way,
a, it's such a good feeling.
Was this something who was arguing?
No, nobody was arguing with me. It's okay. So a study.
He's just arguing with himself. I'm right.
Yeah. Damn it. I'm right again. So a study was just came out, and they studied to look at how people operated on two different kinds of diets: ultra processed diets versus more of a natural food intake, natural food type of diet. And what do we always talk about? What is the main reason why we tell people avoid heavily processed food?
Right.
It hijacks your
It
system.
just messes with your palate.
That's it. Because can you eat highly processed food that's more healthy than the unhealthy stuff? Yes. It's not inherently unhealthy, although more often than not, processed food isn't super healthy. Are the whole natural foods that aren't as healthy as other foods? Yes, but more often than not, whole natural foods are healthier. But that's not the main reason why I tend to tell people avoid processed food. What they found in the study is that the reason why people gain weight when they eat processed food isn't because insulin spikes or anything like that. It's because their consumption causes people to overeat like crazy.
Yeah, fuck, duh.
Yep, and so this was a tightly controlled study, which I love. It was carried out in a metabolic ward. So they're controlling what the people are eating. And they found that when people are allowed to eat unlimited access to highly processed foods, they eat way more than when the foods are unprocessed. So the bottom line is, if you are trying to manage your food intake so that you don't overeat, it's going to be really, really, really hard if you have a diet that's high in highly processed foods. In fact, I would go as far as to say, if all you did was eliminate processed foods, you would probably see your body weight move towards a healthier, more natural place. I don't think you'll get shredded, but I think a lot of people will automatically lose weight just because they find they don't want to eat nearly as much.
It's interesting because you see like Whole Foods diet and you see this like kind of like surface, and I know a lot of people have had like this sort of epiphany just going through that process, and it is because when you really start to gather whole foods and you have to spend the time chopping it, you have to spend the time preparing and then cooking it, and then you go through that whole process and you realize like what's involved with that. It's just another one of those things where you see the opposite of that, how easy it is to just shovel it in, and then also it's like you crave more.
Well, make no mistake, for thousands of years, humans now have been trying to make food more palatable. I mean, every culture has their own particular style of cuisine, and some styles are more popular than others. Italian food tends to be really popular, Mexican food, French food, and really what they're doing when you're looking at them and the whole natural foods that they cook with and stuff is they're trying to make whole natural foods more palatable, and we've been doing that for a long time.
Right.
The thing is, processed foods takes it to a completely different
it's like
level.
An exponential factor.
They are literally fucking with your chemistry to a point where it's almost not fair. You know what I'm saying?
Well, you just did a really cool post on abstaining from things, and I think it's just that I'm not mad at all that stuff. I think it's awesome that science has evolved us so much that we have this ability to make some, like how amazing was going to that steak restaurant we had. I mean, that's science right there. They have learned to pair wines with certain meats that you're doing. They've put all these different things together to, make our brain go bananas as we're eating it. And it's fucking amazing. And I love it. And I don't think I'd ever want to go back the other direction, but I think that the same, old school principles of, whether you're somebody who's religious and take that from like biblical stuff, or you just believe in that as a good practice. But learning to abstain from things is such an important practice. It's like, awesome, sex is great, but it can get out of control too. It could take over your life.
Just be aware of what you're dealing with. If be aware that when you're dealing with highly processed foods, lots and lots of engineering and money has gone into making that food so palatable that it's going to hijack your system, and that as much willpower, all the willpower in the world, the odds are stacked against you in essence. And just know that. It's like an alcoholic, a recovering alcoholic, going and getting a job in a bar. Like they're putting themselves in a pretty shitty position, and they think they'd be aware enough to know that's probably a job I shouldn't get, because as much willpower as I have, being around alcohol all the time, it's going to really encourage me to eat. Well, these processed foods are like that, and I'm not talking about it like it's an addiction. The average person, like, you put a bag of potato chips in front of me, and if I eat one or two of them, it starts to send those signals off way more than whole natural foods do. A baked potato won't do that. I don't care how much butter you put on it or whatever. It sends those signals into motion. Boy, trying to maintain a diet where calories are appropriate, it's going to be really hard, because we all
in conjunction with what's happening right now. I mean, what are we seeing with tech in the last 10, 15 years? Yeah. I mean, we're not having to drive anywhere. We're not having to move to do anything. I mean, it's so you pair those two things. Science is getting better with the hijacking of the flavors and making your brain go nuts when you eat stuff. At the same time, too, we're making things so convenient for you. You don't have to get off the couch and go to it. I mean, the combination of those two of those things, it's no wonder we're getting worse.
I think what you need to do really is look at processed food and respect it. Does that make sense? Like, I know people who, drink alcohol. I know people who do drugs, but they, and I'm not advocating for those things, but they also respect those things enough to know, like, okay, I like
how powerful they are.
I like doing these drugs. But I respect them enough to know if I do them every day, it's not going to be good. Like, look at processed foods that way. Look at them and be like, okay, I'm respecting the power that these things have. So you kind of treat them that way. I'm not talking about demonizing these things, but treat them that way. Here's the thing. We all understand and talk about how humans evolved during times of scarcity for the most part, and that our bodies are hardwired to want to eat when food's in front of us. But there's another thing that's hardwired into us that we don't talk about much, which is it's just as bad as it is for you to starve. It's almost as bad for you to overeat and cause yourself to get sick and cause digestive issues and become obese. And the human body knows that. And so when you have whole natural foods in front of you, it'll stop you many times from eating past a certain point. It just fucking does. Like, go ahead and try to eat just whole natural foods and try to overeat that way, and you'll see how much more challenging it is than when you're throwing processed foods at yourself, because the body naturally wants to maintain a little bit of homeostasis, and we're just hijacking the fuck out of it with all these crazy foods. And I love that a study came out to support that, because we always talk against processed foods, and then we got people who go against us like, it's all about blah, blah, blah. It's like,
no food is bad food.
Yeah, and it's like you're completely negating human behavior out of it. Like, all the psychology of it, you're totally pretending like that doesn't exist, when that's like 90-something percent of it.
Pretty much everything.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Do you get what was that show on Netflix? I wanted to talk about that. That
Strongland.
That's the one.
Yeah. I was just going through that series. I watched the first one. It was in Spain, I believe, and they're doing these crazy lifts with they basically fashioned their own kind of rocks out of it, into where it was like cylinder size, like square. All these different like types of shapes, and they kind of made like a sport out of it, and it's like their own really popular thing there, which was I didn't even know it existed.
So I didn't see this. I thought
that was the Legend series, which I think you were thinking of with Eugene Sandow.
I watched what you're talking about. I watched that first episode.
So what is that about? They show like different strength sports around the world?
Yeah, they show different strength sports, like how different cultures kind of use like a lot of laborious practices, like in terms of like tilling the fields and like, farming, or in terms of like, what is it called when you're a bricklayer, or like you're a stonemason. Mm-hmm. Like if you're a stonemason. So the second one I just watched was it kind of got into the history of the Highland Games, and then also just like the different like historical stones that were like around the country, and how they had all this like historical significance, and like everybody, like it was a test of a feat of strength as a warrior to be able to lift a certain type of a stone and then place it upon the top of this.
Oh, I love that shit.
Yeah, on the top of this. Oh, I got all like, like sentimental about it, because it was like, I just traveled there, and it was just like, I didn't even know. Like I was like, oh fuck, they had these like crazy stones in like certain locations, like at this grave site, at this corner, and it was like, it's known that like this stone was like lifted by all these great warriors. And
oh, that's so awesome.
Yeah, I totally got into it.
It's so funny because when I was sick, someone DM'd me I got a couple people. I always if I get enough DMs about one thing, I'll go watch it, right? And that was another one that I got several DMs. I couldn't quite get into it as much. I obviously know why Justin loves it. Was it Ireland where it was at? That's where it was.
Scotland.
Scotland. Okay, yeah. So, and the premise that I got from it was just that it was showing the history of like way before strongman competitions and these games even existed. People have been doing this in other countries for a very, very long time.
So cool.
And it's so basic. Like one of the ones they have is just this huge block stone, right? And you get this little metal handle and a chain that goes to it, and it's just you drag it 1 inch at a time. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, and it's like a race from one side.
They're just feats of strength.
Yeah, but and almost everything that I saw, or at least what I saw in the first episode, I might have watched 2, that I saw were all things that you had to do on the farm, like somewhere else. Like that's how it became a thing. Was like, this is shit you got to do anyways. Let's see who the best farmer or the best.
Let's see who the strongest and most able-bodied person is to do this.
Yeah,
and then it catapulted. God, I'm trying to remember the name of these 2 very famous stones, the ones you're talking about with the handles on it. And people from all over the world have come over there to try and lift these 2 stones.
Wow. So I have a special place in my heart for these types of things. First off, I love seeing old cultures and their feats of strength and their sports that are kind of unknown. And what I find that's fascinating is you find these types of events in a lot of countries. There's a lot of countries that do these types of things. And when, part of the reason why I have the special place is when I went to Sicily to visit my dad's side of the family when I was 12, my grandfather told me about all the feats of strength that him and his friends and stuff would perform. And it's funny because he would tell me, and then some of his old friends would tell me about the things that he would do. And the way that they would do these, for a long time, my grandfather
tended... The Denny stones, I'm sorry.
My grandfather tended to lemon orchards. So Sicily's known for growing lots of lemons. So my grandfather would go manage some of these and help pick them or whatever. And he would talk about how many what do they call, pallets of lemons they could lift. And, your grandfather lifted 4. He could lift 4 on his head and carry them all the way up the hill, and other people couldn't do that, and it became this big deal. And I find this stuff, my dad, he gets into this kind of stuff. So when I used to go work with him, you would see at lunchtime, him and his workers would take a shovel, and they'd hold it by the very end of the handle. So this big, heavy shovel. And the goal was to lift it with your arm totally straight. And then they'd be able to do it sometimes. And then what they'd do is they'd put like sand in the shovel and see if they could do it and who could do the most. Or they get a sledgehammer. This one's actually quite common, where you hold a sledgehammer at arm's length.
Yeah. And then you have to tilt with your wrist.
You tilt it and you touch your nose with it and come up.
I've done that one, yeah.
So if you're not strong, you're going to smash your face. You'll end up smashing your face.
Yeah.
And I love these types of feats of strength because I find them so bonding and so fun.
Yeah. Well, it's also, I mean, God, when you think about what we do, for a living and what we've done for a living for so long, teach other people how to lift dumbbells and barbells long before all of that. This is how it started.
Yeah.
Before a barbell or a dumbbell was created, some asshole took a tool and touched it to his nose and was like, "Oh yeah,
that
you
was
got to
the tool he had available."
Right. I bet, guaranteed, they did things, which is crazy how we just are as humans, that we just found these things to compete with each other, and then somebody probably got competitive and wanted to get good at it, so training began.
Yeah. These Denny stones is crazy because you have to hold them together, and so it's like the only way you could do it is in this kind of split stance.
Oh, I've seen it, one in front, one in back.
Yeah, and so you lift it up almost like in kind of a lunging position, and then you try and shuffle forward. And so that apparently this Denny guy was able to take it across this bridge and back, and so that was like the whole thing was the distance of how not only do you pick it up, but he would like carry it with him, and then like set it down, pick it up, carry it with him. It was like 340 something kilograms, which was like well over 600 pounds each stone. So it's just like it's insane.
Are there any feats of strength that you guys have ever witnessed besides like professional strength athletes? You guys ever witness any feats of strength with like? I know you guys have worked blue collar and farm. You ever see anything where someone's doing something and you go to try to do it and you're like, what the fuck? I can't even move that thing.
My dad could do some really cool stuff. My stepdad, like the way he carried like 2x4s up flights of stairs or across like beams on top of that always blew. It was already heavy as it was, and then he could balance it on his shoulder with like no hands as he scaled across like the framework of the building. Yeah. And then he used to do this thing, and this is less of it is some strength and skill here. He used to take 16-inch penny nails and he'd take a roll of them in his hands like this, and he'd make a tight fist. And this was, I remember when he was teaching me, we'd be somewhere, and all I had to do was, two 16-inch penny nails to the roof, and then move the next 2x4 2-inch penny nails, and I mean it would take me a half hour just to work like one little side of this, I tap it in, and then you clink anyway. So he would come over, and it's 2 hits. One to set the nail and one to sink it.
Yep.
Set, sink.
Just ding, ding, ding,
and,
ding,
and
ding.
yeah, I would watch him do what just took me a half hour to do. I would see him do that in literally less than a minute.
Perfected the process.
Oh, and and just perfect. And it was like, whoa. And as a kid, I was
seen that too,
so impressed by that ability to do that, because I've been, and still to this day, if I ever have to hammer, and I don't have to do it a lot, but if I have to hammer a nail, and I always think of that memory of like, fuck my dad, dude. Just to get this one
down.
Yeah, just to get this one nail in, it takes me 15 minutes where he could just, it's a tap to set and then a sink. And it's like, that's the strength. You don't realize that short in the forearm to be able to bury a 16-inch penny nail into a 2x4.
Yeah, I've seen a guy that played football with me. There was this car that was like kind of blocking another car, and we're like, oh, fuck, we need to get a bunch of guys and we're going to move this thing. And he's just like, and just went over there, picked it up and started sliding it himself, and like moved it over. And then we all like tried to we're like, oh, that must be like a light car. It was not a fucking light car, dude. Like, that was like a legit like 1-ton car.
It's hilarious.
I was like so baffled by that.
Yeah, no, my dad still to this day, and I have a little bit of his strength, I guess, for size, but I don't have 100% of what my dad has. My brother has more of it. You guys met my brother in Vegas,
right?
And my brother, he's a big guy. He's a big dude.
Yeah, he's a big kid.
He doesn't lift weights, and he'll come in here and he'll squat 3 plates and bench 2 plates like nothing. But he doesn't even work out. He just rides. He rides his bike for distance. That's what he does.
Yeah.
He rides like literally 50, 60 miles on a weekend or something silly like that. And he's got more of what my dad used to trip me out. And when I was a kid, I thought I'd be able to do what he did. When I got older, I still can't. I'll never forget one time. I want to say I was 16 years old. I'm in the backyard, and I, for the first time ever, was able to clean and overhead press 135 pounds with the barbell. For a 16-year-old kid, that's fucking strong, right? But I had been working out already for 2 years. So I was waiting for my dad to come home from work. Like, I'm going to show my dad. He's going to be so proud of me or whatever. So he walks in. He's tired, right? It's like 5 o'clock at night. He's got cement all over him, whatever. And I'm like, hey, come here. I'm like, look what I can do. And I fucking clean it. And then I boost it, and I press it up, and then I drop it. And he's like, whoa. He goes, that's really good. He goes, let me try that out. And the fucker cleaned it with one hand. He cleaned it up to it like a snatch. It wasn't even like a press. He just fucking snatched it up with one hand. Damn. And then years later, and I can't do that now. I still can't do that. Years later, this is probably, I want to say 7 or 8 years ago. So my dad's not like a young guy at all. And he's got arthritis in his spine and this and that and the other. He came into my personal training studio because we were going to have lunch, and he's asking me how much the kettlebells weigh. And I said, oh, this one's 25 because they were in kilos. This is 25. This one's 78 pounds. I think was the bigger one. And he says, can you press that? Can you lift that above your head? So I do a 1-arm press with it, and it's pretty heavy for me. I'm not a huge overhead press guy. And so then my dad goes, you ever try to press it while it's upside down? I goes, oh yeah, that's called a bottoms up press. I said, I can't do more than 30 pounds like that. That's a hard, you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. You hold it by the handle. Again, he does it and he was in his Yeah, he was 50-something years old. He did it with the fucking 78-pound kettlebell in front of all my trainers. And all my trainers are looking at me like, what the fuck? And everybody goes and tries to do it, and we couldn't do it. And those are some of my favorite things. I'll remember those forever.
Remember when you used to think that like old man strength was like a myth? Like,
no, it's real.
Oh, it's
totally real.
No, it's very real. And until I really started to understand how the CNS works, and I know there's still a lot of things that we don't know about it, but we know enough about it and the importance of its role that it makes total sense that old man strength is a real thing. It's because you've trained a certain way. You've done so many things for so many years. Yeah. That's your CNS when it calls.
And you refine those movements and systems like so long that it's like that well established.
Right. Oh yeah, it's good times.
This Quaz brought to you by Organifi. For those days you fall short on getting your organic veggies or whole food nutrition, Organifi fills the gap with laboratory-tested certified organic superfoods to help give your health and performance the added edge. Try Organifi totally risk-free for 60 days by going to Organifi.com. That's ORGANIFI.com. And use the coupon code MINDPUMP for 20% off at checkout.
Our first question is from Tiki Taki Talk. Can you please go over the pros and cons of full body workout programming versus body part splits?
The age-old debate. The debate between the full body and the body part split. There's... I think we have to do is kind of talk about the biggest differences between them. Now, I'm typically partial to full body workouts because in my experience, working with lots of just everyday people, who want to build muscle strength, burn body fat, just everyday people, the full body workouts are much more often than not more successful. And I think there's a couple reasons why. One of the main reasons is the amount of frequency that you hit a body part. So when you do a full body workout, the typical full body split is a 3-day-a-week workout. So you go to the gym, classic, right? Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Each of those days, you're working out your entire body. And really what that looks like is hitting each body part 3 times a week. Now, the traditional body part splits, the popular body part splits are where you take a body part, 1 or 2 body parts, you train it on one day, then the next day you train 1 or 2 other body parts and so on. And those usually allow for once a week body part frequency, at the most 2 times a week. And that's becoming more popular nowadays, but for a long time there, it was all about hitting a body part once a week. So it was literally
I think that's why we came out, we came out so much more in opposition to splits initially, because that was still the old formula. It was like once a week, we're going to just hammer our legs as much as we can to carry us throughout the entire week. And then like split the muscle groups accordingly. So you only hit it basically once, maybe twice a week. But.
Yeah. And we can measure the muscle building process post exercise by measuring something called muscle protein synthesis. And when that's elevated, it's a really good indication that your body is synthesizing protein and building.
It's primed to grow.
Building muscle. And that signal spikes right after a workout, but then it falls pretty quickly. And for normal intermediate, beginners, that falls at about 48 to 72 hours. For advanced people, that can fall right after 24 hours. So it peaks and then goes down real quick. And what ends up happening is if you hit your chest on Monday, only on Mondays, even though you may have damaged the hell out of the pecs and you're sore, that muscle building signal it's gone after Wednesday. It's pretty much done. And then what ends up happening is when that muscle building signal is gone, the body usually starts to go in the opposite and then starts to take muscle away. And so this is why people get trapped in that whole tear down, process where they go to the gym, they hit their body parts real hard, they get real sore, they recover for a full week, they go back to the gym, they work out real hard, get real sore, and they do this over and over and over again, never getting stronger.
It's a breakdown recovery trap.
Yeah, never progressing.
I think the real takeaway from the difference of these two is what you just hit on, and that it's not that it's a full body versus a split, it's that one of them tends to have a much higher frequency than the other. Mm-hmm. And that was the big takeaway for me when I switched from a split type of routine versus a full body routine, is now I was hitting all these muscles 3 times a week. And even if I did that like occasionally, because I had done this previously, like I would do, back when I was originally getting started as a personal trainer and we were reading all the same magazines we talk about, I was doing a body part split and then basically hitting every muscle once, maybe twice. But then there would be like a muscle group I really wanted to focus on. And so I would try and increase the volume on that. And sometimes that meant more frequency on that. And I'd see a little bit of development. But then what would happen is my consistency would drop and then I would not be sustaining that size anymore and kind of go back. And it never really, it didn't click for me yet, like the secret to that. And also, when you make the switch, and this is where I think a lot of people struggle, is when you make the switch from a body part split, which I think a lot or a majority of people tend to gravitate towards, when you make the switch over to the full body, something that's very key is you have to now adjust your intensity. And the previous times that I tried to make my way over to a full body routine, I made the mistake of trying to carry over a workout volume that was equal to my
all-in-one workout.
All-in-one workout. And so what would happen is I would, because I had trained myself to hammer a muscle so hard that I'd go, okay, I'm going to do like this full body routine today. But then I was hammering each muscle and then I was incredibly sore. And then I had to come back 2 days later and hit a lot of those muscles again. And I'm like, fuck, I'm so sore. It's hindering. And then I was like, this doesn't make sense. This isn't for me. And I kind of gave up on it. I didn't think that the body part or full body routine was as good as the split for that reason. The problem was I wasn't modifying my intensity. So I think that whatever camp you're in right now, that you believe that it's the best, first of all, like I always say on this show, more than likely the best thing for you is actually the opposite of what you're doing right now because you're probably pretty adapted to whatever it is you're doing. So I don't care if you think you respond better to splits or you think you respond better to full bodies. If you've been running one or the other for a very long time, the opposite probably right now is one of the best things you could do. Now, the problem is whichever direction you're going, whether you're going from a split to a full body, if you're going from a split to a full body, you need to learn to back off the intensity. And then if you're a full body person and you're going to a split every muscle, you're probably going to have to pick up the intensity because you're only going to get to hit that muscle once, maybe twice in a week. Yeah. So
the other thing too to consider with hitting a body part more frequently or doing a full body is the exercise selections tends to change. So again, if I'm hitting my chest and I'm doing 15 sets for chest and I only hit my chest on Mondays, let's think of all the exercises I'm going to do for those 15 sets.
Right, you're going to have 2 or 3 badass ones and then the rest are fillers.
Yeah, I'm probably going to do my bench press and my incline press, but then I'm pretty fatigued by that point, so it's going to be a bunch of machines and cable exercises to make up those 15 sets. Now, versus hitting chest 3 days a week and doing 5 sets each day. So remember, same total volume, so I'm still doing 15 sets for the week. The difference is now I'm split up the workout. Well, when I go into the gym and I know I only have 5 sets, I'm going to pick the big gross motor movements. I'm going to pick the big bang for the buck type exercises. And so people also tend to do more of the effective exercises because they have more energy in their gas tank. They're not as fried as they would be with a typical body part split. The other thing to consider is this, most of the stimulus that you get from a workout is localized and focused on the area that you're working. So if I work out my legs, most of the muscle building stimulus goes to my legs, okay? But we do know that there's also this systemic effect. And for people who've never worked out their legs, and then all of a sudden they work out their legs, first thing that they'll notice is their arms grow too. Like, what the heck's going on? I'm doing everything else the same except I just threw in some leg exercises. Now my chest, arms, and back are growing.
I feel like, and I would love to look this up, but the law of radiation, irradiation, I should say, covers a lot of that just because it helps to explain how other muscles are still contracting and stabilizing and also like contributing, even though your main focus is the legs.
Well, they've known this for a long time with studies where if they'll have people exercise one arm, most of the strength gains will go to that one arm, but some strength gains will actually go to the other arm, even though the other arm hasn't been exercised. And so, how does that apply here with full body over split? Well, when you're working your full body, you are sending the loudest overall muscle building, anabolic, central nervous system signal because you've trained the entire body in that day. If you're in the gym and you're only hitting your chest, and shoulders, you're not going to get as loud of a systemic muscle building effect. And so, look, here, my best estimation is this. If I were to take 10 normal people who all want to build muscle, 8 of them will do better on a full body routine. I would say a full 80%. Just do best on a traditional 3-day-a-week, hit the whole body, 1 or 2 exercises per body part type of routine. Now, there's a lot more complexity in that. Of course, exercise selection and tempo and how you phase your workouts. And then, of course, if you want to go and really have something that's programmed even better, then you have programs like MAPS. That most of our MAPS programs tend to be full body. Although we did write a split routine because there is some benefit to maybe backing off a little bit on the frequency. So rather than hitting the body parts 3 days a week, you're hitting them twice a week, but you're doing more volume within that workout. I think Adam hit the nail on the head. You stick to one for long enough, you go to the other one, you start to notice some benefit.
Right. And that's why I think we created this second program. And I would love to challenge the people that are listening right now that are in one of those camps to go outside of that. And we do. We have a program on both sides. I mean, most of the programs are based, like, MAPS Green, Red, and Black are all based around the full body type of routine. But we did create Split for that reason that, if you've been running a full body for most of your life or most of your training career or even in the last year or two consistently and you've made your way through like Red, Green, and Black, I would highly recommend going to a Split and seeing how your body responds, and vice versa. If you're somebody who's been living in the Split forever, I think one of the best things that you can do is go to a full body routine and do that for a while and see how your body responds. The thing that just reminding you of the biggest thing that I've had to coach to is the intensity. Both of them have to change. No matter what direction you're going, you've got to modify that. Either you're ramping it up for somebody who is dropping down to less frequency, or you're decreasing it for somebody who's doing it more often, right?
Next question is from Kristen AML. What are your best tips for focusing on the mind-muscle connection?
Mind-muscle connection. So this refers to your ability to isolate or contract and feel a particular muscle.
Well, that's why I think isolation exercises are great for this.
That's the best.
If I'm gonna nail it down to like where the focus should lie, let's consider single joint movements.
Oh, absolutely. I remember, when I was younger, it was really hard. The last part of my body I was able to really feel when I worked out was my back. I could feel everything else, after about a year of working out. I could feel my chest when I bench pressed. I could feel my shoulders when I do overhead presses, and of course, quads and hamstrings and glutes when I do certain leg exercises. But when I would do back exercises, it was kind of hard to feel. Part of the reason is I think we don't see those muscles contracting. Looking at a muscle, by the way, really helps with the mind-muscle connection. Mm-hmm. So I remember I do things like pull-ups and rows, and I'd feel a lot in my biceps and my forearms, and I knew I was working my back, but I couldn't really connect to it. And the first time I ever felt my lats was when I did a superset where I did dumbbell pullovers, which is generally an isolation exercise for the lats, much more so than, let's say, a row or a pull-up. And then I went straight to pull-ups, and then all of a sudden, I could feel a pump in my lats. Now, once I felt my lats, then I could feel them more with each subsequent exercise. And I want to make that point because some studies have shown that priming a muscle before a lift does not activate it more. However, they're completely negating the psychology of why you prime a muscle before you in order to feel it more. Like if I have a client who's doing squats a particular way and she's like, I don't feel my glutes, then I do a bunch of isolation exercises so her glutes get really start to burn and get a little bit of pump. Then she does squats. Now she can feel what her glutes are doing. That's going to help her connect to the glutes during some of these exercises.
It's going to affect her mechanics in that exercise because she can feel the process of that, where the recruitment of it is contributing. And I think that matters, in terms of like if it's all quad driven, like, and you're going down into a squat, the limitation of maybe your depth or, even it'll affect all those things, like just having that connection, that feeling of responsiveness from where you're supposed to feel it, and muscles contributing.
I have a couple thoughts on this. I think it really doesn't matter, and I think it matters a lot. So I think it doesn't really matter if you're somebody who doesn't really care as much about aesthetics and trying to sculpt and shape your body, because you can, for the rest of your life, get under a bench press, muscle it up, and not try and isolate your chest. And your shoulders will contribute a lot, your triceps, your back contributes a lot, and you're going to build muscle. You're going to burn calories, you'll burn fat, you'll build muscle, you'll build a stronger, stable body. But what I've really enjoyed about competing was the aspect of almost sculpting your physique. And for example, I can take a lat pull down and I can make a lat pull down super focused, like on my rear delts, by keeping my shoulders in a rolled forward position, yet it looks to the average person totally normal. But because I allow the scapula to roll forward and keep it forward while I'm doing the lat pull down, my rear delts take over a majority of that movement. Now, some of my back still kind of works and my arms are working too, but because of that, it's going to start to develop my rear delts more than my lats. And then I can take that same exercise and just purely retract my shoulders, and now most of the lats take over. Now, think about that. If you do that every single time you work out, you can start to develop parts of your body more so than others, and you can take exercises and you can make them be more for a certain muscle than another muscle, even though the body doesn't isolate a single muscle. So even when we talk about isolation exercises, it's impossible to isolate a muscle. Your body will always be using an antagonist, and there'll also be other secondary muscles.
It affects quite a bit more.
Right. And studies will show that you can use more of one muscle over another simply by knowing how to feel that muscle more.
Yeah.
I can do a row and I could, barely grab the bar, have a light weight, make it feel so heavy because I don't engage my biceps. I can actually do a row without engaging my biceps.
I can make a row more rhomboid dominant, and then I can make a row more lat dominant.
Or more bicep dominant.
Right.
You can, I just look at it as like, do I want to build my body off of like compensations and get excellent off of like what I can already compensate and make happen? I could get this weight up without like, any certain like specific pathway that's like the most optimal? Or can I build my body off of like the most optimal mechanics involved with that process and really connect to that process?
Yeah, and look, there is a general, I think, benefit to being able to connect to your muscles. It gives you really good body awareness. It really does. I mean, I'm not by any stretch of the imagination a flexible individual. I've done yoga classes maybe a grand total of 15 times in my entire life. But when I do yoga, which is very, very seldom, instructors have commented that I have really good body awareness. Even though I'm tight and I'm not able to get in certain positions, they could just tell me to move a particular muscle or squeeze this or activate that, and I know how to do it. I have really good body awareness because I've been focusing so hard on mind-muscle connection for so long. Now, so I do think there's some benefits, and of course, if you're listening because you want to sculpt your body and focus on an area, that's where the real value lies. Now, here's some tips. Isolation exercises at the beginning of your workout. Now, this isn't the most effective way to build muscle, but this is a great way to feel the muscle that you're not feeling. And so in that particular scenario, I would tell people, do your isolation exercises first in the workout. Like if you don't feel your chest when you bench press, do some really good slow flies, then go bench press, you're going to feel your chest more.
This question would have been better asked if it was more specific to an exercise, because we could talk all day on this topic, but I could give you even more specific answers if you said, hey, Adam, I'm having a real hard time connecting to my triceps. I'm having a real hard time feeling my chest when I work out. Hey, Adam, I'm having a really hard time feeling my lats. And then I could give you specific exercises that I think you should do before we start the normal routine. Because if you have a hard time engaging your lats and you do like, really heavy bent over rows, that's not a great exercise for someone who's having a hard time utilizing their lats in a movement like that. I would start them in a single arm cable row where I can have them really exaggerate the movement, go really light. Another tip I like to give somebody when we're trying to isolate or feel or get a better connection to a smaller or a specific muscle is to go really, really light and then pause at the end of the rep. So whatever I'm trying to feel, I got to weight so light that I can kind of pause and hold in that position.
And just squeeze.
And just squeeze the muscle I'm trying to think about. The one that I want to work, I'm going to just really squeeze it and think about it with that. And it's hard to do that with a heavy weight or a weight that you have to keep a tempo that is a faster cadence, do something that's so light that you can pause in that area and think about that muscle.
Very slow tempo.
Ben Pekulski actually pointed that out. He said that the place where people have the worst connection to muscles that are lagging or whatever is at the shortened, contracted position. So it's the squeeze that's most important. But I'd say isolation exercises first. Adam gave a great tip. Go light. Focus on the squeeze. The other thing is look at the muscle you're trying to work. Right. So if you're working...
Mirrors do help in this situation.
Yes. Watch them. So even if I'm bench pressing, look down at your chest and watch your chest work. It actually helps. If you have a training partner, have them place a finger or two on the muscles you're trying to work. Getting that touch feedback helps tremendously. I used to do this with clients all the time. Yeah. I think that's it. I think that's all. Oh, and also, lastly, if you go on Google and look up the action, what is the main action of a muscle? Once you understand the main action, you can envision what the muscle's doing as you're moving. So if I know that the pecs bring my humerus, which is the top of my arm, closer to the midline of my body, I know what part of the bench press I need to focus on. It's not the pushing up the bar, it's the bringing the elbows in part of the bar.
Yep. Next question is from Dill's Law. What are your thoughts on lifting weights while pregnant?
Hell yeah.
The best possible. That is one of the best things you could do while you're pregnant is lift weights. It's
maintain that strength and ability that you've put in.
There are issues with insulin. There's insulin sensitivity issues that can happen with women when they're pregnant, and muscle is one of the greatest protections against having those issues. You want to have that muscle.
Dr. Lyon's episode is live, right? It's already up, right, Doug?
Yes.
Wednesday. So it's up. That's a great episode. We touch on this in that. I mean, she talks a lot about that, and obviously Katrina and I discussed this a lot. And I think it's crazy. I mean, Sal recommended the business of birthing or whatever it was.
The business of being born.
And one of the things that I remember, my buddy him and his wife just had their kids. There's two of them, and they talk about when she gets, it's the epidural, right, that numbs them.
Yeah.
So when they got the epidural, she says like all of a sudden I couldn't feel my lower part of my body. And so right away, knowing what I know about like mind-muscle connection and being able to activate a muscle, if you can't feel it because it's numb, it's really tough to activate it and fire it or know if you are squeezing or fire it. So it's crazy to me that we do that. And you have somebody who's an average person who probably takes off training during pregnancy, or they don't train at all even before pregnancy. And so they have a really bad disconnect there, right, as far as those internal muscles in the abdominal region and area and the pelvic floor. And then you ask them to push. Okay, that's already challenging enough. And then you give them a drug that numbs that? Like, are you kidding me? So I think the training, when you're pregnant and she talks about this in that episode, around those muscles during that time is extremely important because you want to be able to
strengthen the pelvic floor. You work on your core while you can. As the baby grows, you're not going to be able to do core exercises. Right. Strengthen your hips and your legs. Another thing that happens when you get pregnant is certain hormones start to improve or increase flexibility in your joints. And
your hips get a lot more flexible because they have to.
They do. And now here's the problem with that. If you're not strong and you all of a sudden become more flexible, now you increase your risk of hurting yourself. And so you see a lot of women hurt their backs or their hips start to bother them. You want to be strong. You want to be really, really strong. And it also is good for the baby. Obviously, being healthy and being able to respond well to insulin and carbohydrates while you're eating, while you're pregnant. All these things benefit the baby as well. But at the end of the day, if you watch a birth, I've seen two of them, and especially if it's a more natural birth, that is it's a long thing. It's a hard, long thing, and you want to be strong for that process. But besides all that, besides the actual process of giving birth and all that, if you want your body to bounce back, I can't think of anything better that you can do than lifting weights. I've had lots of female trainers that have worked for me, and I've had quite a few of them while they were working with me for me get pregnant. I've also had aerobics instructors in some of the gyms that I've managed get pregnant. And the difference between the trainers that like to lift a lot of weights, the difference in speed and how fast they bounce back versus
it's very significant.
Oh, it's crazy.
Oh, look at our girl Grace Barga. I mean, you guys want to see someone who's like popped out the kids and then like right back to
2 months later, she looks like she didn't even have it.
Right. Primo physique right after. I mean, we had her shoot the MAPS program. What was it? She wasn't that far, that long.
Daughter's like 1 year old.
Yeah, not even, I don't think, when she first shot with us.
Not even one yet, yeah.
And that a lot of I remember watching her videos why, she was, deep into her pregnancy and squatting and overhead pressing and rowing and still training. Because the key is, and I think the mistake that happens is, I think most people are realize the importance of training while they're pregnant. Mm-hmm. But then what the problem is, a lot of them weren't doing it before. And then now they're like, serious, I'm having a kid.
That's not the time to go get crazy shape.
It's not. And what I'm learning about what Katrina's going through right now firsthand, the first trimester it's crazy, and it made me feel good after we talked to Dr. Lyon, because she was talking about how, she's missed consistent, never missed more than 2 days in a row before. And she's like, I can't believe how fatigued I am. I can't believe how nauseous I am. She's like, this first trimester has been so hard.
It's interesting to see, especially with a lot of type A people or people are really on it all the time, like how that first trimester really knocks them on their back. Like,
yeah, Katrina has struggled with, because she's normally super consistent, and she's been pretty good. I mean, she's making it in there, but I mean, I can tell that she
don't feel like it.
Yeah, she just doesn't feel like it. No. And I'm really patient with that. Like, I don't want to be telling her what she needs to do.
She needs to listen to her body. All those factors need to apply. And like you said, it's not about like trying to improve. It's about like maintaining the strength and the abilities. And like, that's what you want to carry in with you.
Yeah, it always blows me away. I've also had lots of clients that I've trained before, during, and after pregnancy. Actually, over the last 15 years, I've trained about 5 of them. I'm still in contact. Their kids call me Uncle Sal now, because they were literally, I trained their mom while they're pregnant, and then they were born. Then they bring their kid in so I could swing their baby in the chair or hold them while their mom worked out. And I used to do this all the time. I used to love doing it. But their moms would bounce back so quick, and it was so funny. Every single one of them told me how shocked their doctors were. Like, man, my doctor can't believe I'm already working out and I already look the way I do. And it's like, it's the strength training, man. Every single one of them worked out 2 or 3 days a week with me. Like, none of them were these hardcore fitness fanatics. We just built a really strong base with weights, and so it makes a tremendous, tremendous difference. It's the first number one thing I recommend to pregnant women is, before you get pregnant, develop a good base with weights, and then maintain lifting weights throughout the entire pregnancy, as long as you can. Of course, don't hurt yourself and don't push yourself beyond what you can do, and then you'll be blown away how fast you bounce back.
Next question is from eBraga06. Can you speak about the Brittany Dawn fitness scam?
Oh, wow. I've been getting a bunch of DMs around
Dude,
this.
So I feel like we're at the beginning of a huge social media influencer backlash. I feel like Fire
exposed a lot.
I think that started a little bit of a trend. And I think people now are starting to there's backlash because
even before that, I mean, look at, and I don't know how much we played a role in this or not, but like you saw, like, not Joy Schwoll, but the Devin Physiques, I think that got exposed in terms of like the coaching and, the promise of all these things not getting delivered. And there's this huge backlash for that. And then you saw that sort of trickle out amongst influencers.
Yeah, she has a huge Instagram page, like 500,000 people, and on all her platforms is something like 800,000. And apparently what she did is she sold all these fitness programs, and she promised them to be individualized, and they weren't. She promised to be in contact with people, and she wasn't, and people were just not happy at all with what they were getting. And I guess they formed a group, and there was a YouTube video, and now it's blowing up. And I think she's getting singled out because she's not the only scammer.
Oh, of course,
there's a shit ton of them. I think she's being made an example of, to be quite honest. But
I don't even.
It's just like consumer beware, Like this is the type of stuff. It's like you got to ask yourself, like, why was I buying this?
I don't even know if. I mean, I like to give people the benefit of the doubt, so I don't even know if this is like as much of a scamming thing as it is. You think you've got this great idea. You take sexy pictures of yourself in front of your car in your bikini. People want to look like you. You say cool little motivational stuff. You grow your following to 500,000 or 1 million people, and you see that people buy digital workout programs online, and you can make a lot of money doing it, and you start doing it, and you think that you can provide a service, and because you've probably never built a legitimate business, or at least that legitimate business, and know what that entails, like,
and then the floodgates open up, and you don't know how to scale.
Exactly. I think that's what I think that's what happened to Devin Physique. I think that he was onboarding so many people that they probably had the best of intentions, like, oh, I'm going to create custom plans and I'm going to talk to all of them. They're just too stupid to realize, like, oh, what happens when 5,000 people buy this?
Oh shit, I need like a whole team to do this.
Yeah, what's going to happen? And then what ends up happening is they're probably just giving people whatever they can to give them something, and they're scrambling to stay alive. And
I think you're right, dude.
I think that's just poor management, poor leadership, poor business. Just they don't understand that, and we're in this world now of this Instagram and Insta famous. Where I get it now on a very regular basis. I was just talking to somebody via DM, and they were asking me, hey, should I get a certification if I'm just going to be an online coach? And I was like, wow, this is crazy. This is happening where they don't even do it in person.
So backwards. Right. It's like backwards of the pyramid.
Like not only are you considering not getting a national certification.
It's upside down.
Right. Not only are you considering not being educated in this arena, but then in addition to that, you're going to just skip the whole process of what it would be like to coach somebody in person.
Well, look, dude, I'm popular, and I could sell, so why don't I just do that?
Exactly. That's what's happening, and I think we're seeing it like crazy, and it was inevitable that there would be a backlash. I remember today people ask us, I just turned this down again on the forum, like, how come you guys don't do nutrition program? Well, you know why? Because we're smart enough to know what scaling that would look like.
We cannot handle that.
Yeah. Do you know what it would take to customize a real nutrition plan? I know what it takes every time, because you know why? I've done fucking tons of them.
Yeah.
When I've sat down and wrote a custom meal plan for someone, you have to modify that. It takes tracking on their end, tracking on your end. We're trying to reach the tens of thousands and millions of people. Even with the staff that we have, we couldn't do a good enough job for these people. So we've stayed out of that arena. Like, we don't want to go there because we know that we couldn't fulfill the needs of all those people.
Yeah, it's you're also seeing now on Instagram when people post, I just started seeing this now, when they'll post like a mention, they have to put on in there that it's a sponsored ad.
Yeah.
Whereas before they didn't have to do that because I think they're afraid of being liable, which is fine. This is all a market response. What I don't want to see is regulation around this. Like, I don't want to see, because I could hear people being like, there should be a regulatory agency that, you have to pass this in order to
body for all this stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I don't feel sorry for people when you get scammed. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And maybe this is where I know I lack empathy, but if you are allowing some girl who you've never met in your life, who takes pictures in front of her Range Rover and in her bikini, and because she has a before and after picture, and you just based off of that, you're going to ask nutritional guidance and advice, and you're going to ask training advice. Shame on you.
It's the same thing for me.
I'm sorry.
Tell a evangelist.
I'm sorry, but you deserve what you get. You pay for what you get. You know what I'm saying? And that's all you were looking for qualification. Like, I don't feel sorry for people that fall into these scams. If I'm going to pay for a service, it's no different. Like, there's a picture of a guy right on Instagram, and he's in a lab coat and he has a stethoscope, and he just takes all these cool pictures of like checking heartbeats all the time. And so then all of a sudden I'm asking him medical questions, and I gave him a bunch of money to solve some medical
for $300. I'll do heart surgery.
Right. And just right. Say, are you kidding me? Like, that's not enough. That's not enough for me to take that kind of advice.
It's people are starting to understand what social authority, the distortions of social authority. Like in the past, if you knew that there were 500,000 people who were following and listening and attending to somebody's words, that usually meant that they were good. That's what it usually meant.
True.
Yeah.
Today, and that's what's confusing, is like you see someone, well, they have all these followers, they're making these good videos.
They have the blue check.
And so it looks,
they look awesome, so that's something.
It's distorting our understanding of real authority. So it's like, well, they look legit. They have all these people. Well, no, it's different now. It's a different world now. Now, if you want 500,000 followers, you just got to be kind of hot, post some ass shots.
It's different, and it's the same still, because something is still true, and that is, people buy from people they like. And some of these Instagram influencers have done a really good job of being likable.
Yeah.
You know, I'm cute.
I just wish they'd stick with the pet rock. You know what I mean? Like, do something like that that's not going to like harm people.
We're going to see a backlash. It's not going to last very long.
I agree.
The people making money doing this, it's not going to last that long. People are starting to. Social media is new enough, and all the stuff is new enough that people haven't learned their lesson. 5 or 10 years, you're not going to have a career unless you're really providing good value. My advice to people are this: look. If you want, first of all, the best thing to do is if you're referred by somebody who's already had a service from that person, they say it's good. That's the best. But if that can't happen, look at the content that they're producing. Look at the stuff that they're providing. Are they already providing you with a tremendous amount of value that's free? Because the more free, good quality information and value that you get from someone, the more likely that they're probably going to put time, energy, and effort into the thing that's paid for. You see what I'm saying? Like if a person has a YouTube channel, they've got blogs, they're offering you free guides, you look at their information, like, wow, this is really, really good, and you're absorbing all this free stuff and they're putting a lot of hard work into it, then the odds it might be a little higher that they might be kind of legit. And of course, you could take it a step further. What are the qualifications? What have they done? Who have they worked with? Are they certified? Are they experienced? Do they have a degree? I mean, all that other, normal stuff. And then kind of take it from there. But we're in a strange time, man. It's a strange time. There's a lot of pages with millions of followers that appear to have real value and authority that are complete idiots and morons. They just are. They don't have any real value when it comes to nutrition and fitness. I could pull up 10 of them right now if I wanted to.
Well, I guess maybe I think too, there's this, and there's always been this perception, so it's not that much different than having a gym, right? I remember when I'd get a client that would come in and they'd want to buy personal training, and then they want one of my trainers. And the way if I allowed them to pick, if I lined my trainers up,
the buffed one,
they would pick the one that looked a certain way. Yep. And honestly, of most of my staffs, 9 times out of 10, my buffest trainer was never my smartest trainer, was never my best trainer. Just wasn't. He or she was really good at getting themselves in shape, whether that because they had insecurity or they were neurotic or they were disciplined or whatever, but they had definitely hacked the formula to keep themselves in shape, and good for them for that. But they weren't the best communicators. They weren't the most knowledgeable. They weren't the most experienced. And that's just become exaggerated now in the Instagram world. There's that same perception of, because you see somebody with their shirt off and they take professional photos and they're jacked and they're ripped, you assume they must know a lot about metabolism. They must know a lot about nutrition. They must know a lot about working out. And the truth of the matter is, no, that's not a good indicator. It isn't at all. All it means is that they have figured out what to do for themselves to get in or to maintain that shape. It does not mean that they will be good at advising you in any sort of manner. So you just buyer beware, man. You got to watch out for this shit.
Yep. And with that, look, if you go to mindpumpfree.com, you can download any of our guides for free. That's why the site is called mindpumpfree.com. Go check them out.
Hey, wow.
You can also find us all on Instagram. We all have our own pages. My page is Mind Pump Sal, Adam is Mind Pump Adam, and Justin is Mind Pump Justin.
Thank you for listening to Mind Pump. If your goal is to build and shape your body, dramatically improve your health and energy, and maximize your overall performance, check out our discounted RGB Super Bundle at mindpumpmedia.com. The RGB Super Bundle includes MAPS Anabolic, MAPS Performance, and MAPS Aesthetic. 9 months of phased expert exercise programming designed by Sal, Adam, and Justin to systematically transform the way your body looks, feels, and performs. With detailed workout blueprints and over 200 videos, the RGB Super Bundle is like having Sal, Adam, and Justin as your own personal trainers, but at a fraction of the price. The RGB Super Bundle has a full 30-day money-back guarantee, and you can get it now plus other valuable free resources at mindpumpmedia.com. If you enjoy this show, please share the love by leaving us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes and by introducing Mind Pump to your friends and family. We thank you for your support, and until next time, this is Mind Pump.